The Spurs are back to 500.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, within the Locked NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back, and happy Wednesday, happy hump day. Hope y'all are going to get over that hill and get ready for the weekend that's right around the corner. And as always, we appreciate y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first and only listen for all things San Antonio Spurs. Find us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app. Pick a platform. We are there. Locked On Spurs newsletter is free and available as well. If you're on the YouTube side of things, it's in the description below. Click on that link. Go sign up right now. Hey, it's free. It's completely free. It's a nice little companion piece to Locked On Spurs. What are we talking about today? So the Spurs are back at 500 after beating the Lakers in Los Angeles. What can we expect them now moving forward? Was this kind of a one-off game? Was that really just the Lakers losing the game? Was that the Spurs winning? And what did we learn? Is this team better than advertised? Mitch Johnson felt that the Spurs were playing better ball than the scoreboard reflected to start the game. Well, that was just one game. What can the Spurs do moving forward? And then look at tonight's game, Spurs and Grizzlies. Just going to bring in our guest. He is back, everybody. Michael Jimenez did not big-time me. He did not big-time me this episode. Mike, welcome back. I see you rocking the Castle jersey again.
The Castle jersey, that's right, man. Rocking Stephon Castle, he's my guy. He's my favorite player on the team, not named Wemby.
You pretty much loved his performance against the Lakers, huh?
Hey, 23 points, but I'll take it all day, every day. Why isn't he starting every game? That's what I want to know.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into it then. But before we do that, be sure to follow Jimenez on X. You see it on your screen at MJ Acquired Taste. He is part of the 210 podcast now, right? Is that y'all branded? Yeah. So he's part of the 210 podcast on YouTube. He'll talk about that in just a moment. So Spurs just destroyed the Lakers in the fourth quarter. Pretty much solidified that win for the team. I think it was like 120. They just throttled them. So the Spurs right now are at 519 and 19 heading into tonight's game versus Memphis. The Spurs did a lot of things right. They did a lot of things wrong to start the game versus the Los Angeles Lakers. But we'll try to focus on what they did right. We got to highlight some of the bad. Let's get that out of the way first. I guess the bad, but it's kind of good, is that they brought back that original starting unit to start the season, Castle, Champagnie, Wemby, Barnes, and Paul. But it's bad because why'd you go away from it for so long? So I like that they went back to that. I think that helped them get the win. I think that will help them moving forward. I like what I saw versus Los Angeles. Castle bringing the defense, the points, contribution from the entire starting lineup. Maybe not Champagnie, but nevertheless, you got contributions from Chris Paul, double figures, double score. Wemby was being Wemby. Barnes was being a beast. Yeah, did that right, being a beast in the paint. And then, of course, Castle was doing his thing.
That's actually why I was optimistic going into the second half. Spurs were down 9 at halftime, but I'm watching the game thinking to myself, I like what I see. I'm like what I'm seeing of this team because they're going back to that lineup. And then they took out Champagnie and put more minutes towards Vassell, which I didn't necessarily mind. But it's a good cohesive unit, and analytically it shows it, right? I know that a lot of Spurs fans like certain players and want other players to get minutes or come back from injury or whatever the case may be. But the Spurs have something good going when you have Barnes out there, along with Wemby, along with Champagnie and Vassell and CP3 and Castle. That's the core six of this team. And you put a combination of any of those five players out there, you're going to get the best of what this team has to offer. And if you look at the score, the box score, starting five combined for 99 points. The Lakers scored just 102.
Yeah.
99 points. And every single starter shot 50% or greater this game. Vassell knocking down 5 3-pointers. And this is the exact opposite of what happened in Milwaukee, where no one seemed to come out of the locker room with any fire. The Spurs turned it up because they see it as an LA crowd. They see it's LeBron James and Anthony Davis and all that is the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. And the Spurs showed up, and you see this team get better and better as the third quarter came around. That back-to-back-to-back steals leading to back-to-back-to-back dunks. I hadn't seen that before in a long time for the Spurs. And the Spurs just destroyed the Lakers in the fourth quarter, outscored them by more than 30 points in the second half. It was a great game to watch. And Castle, Spurs are now 11-9 when Stephon Castle starts.
Yeah. With this unit that they went with for the majority of the game, it just proves that it works. Why fix something that wasn't broken? I get it. You reinsert Devin back from injury. It's okay, fine, but I mean, the numbers don't lie. You saw a drop off from that movement. Now, will they stick with it moving forward? Maybe not starting that starting five, but maybe leaning more on it. I hope that's one of the recipes they have cooking for the season as it moves on. Because sure, okay, Devin, you start, but if it gets in the woods, it gets to the grass, and you need that starting five unit, I hope Mitch Johnson or Pop comes back, sticks with that unit. Now, another reason why I think they'll get back to 500, or at least eclipse 500 or hover around it, is because I think they learned a lesson. They got pushed around by the Milwaukee Bucks. Big time. I mean, they got just out physicaled. In this game versus the Lakers, they were the ones being the physical team. Harrison Barnes was in the paint for the most part. They just took it to the Lakers in the fourth period, really upped their game. So I think that's something, that's a mixture there. That's an ingredient there I think the Spurs can use moving forward to either just stay around 500 or maybe eclipse it. Now, one other lesson I like too is at least for a game, we saw Wemby not having to do everything. He didn't have to do everything. You had double-figure scores. You had contributions from Devin Vassell, who was supposed to be your second guy. He showed up, at least for that game. But at the same time, it's kind of a double-edged sword because you're like, yay, Devin, you did great, but can you sustain that? So you looking at what did against the Lakers, you got a 1-2 punch for that one game, Wemby and Vassell. And then you got contributions from other Chris Paul with a double, Steph Castle. You look at even Charles Bassey was just being an Energizer bunny on the defensive end. The problem is, Jimenez, this team hasn't shown they can sustain that, haven't they?
No, they haven't shown that, but the positive that I got out of the game was on the defensive side of the ball more than anything else. Yeah. Every single starter had 2 or more steals. I mean, Chris Paul had 4, Wemby had 3, Castle had 2, Vassell had 2. You had so many steals going on there, and it was the first time that I had seen the Spurs in a long while attack the passing lanes and play better perimeter defense. You know why they're playing better perimeter defense? It's because Castle's out there just being a pest out there and guarding people 92, 94 feet up and down the court. And it's fun to watch Castle go out there because we talk about, how, he sometimes struggles shooting, though he was 10 for 16. But the fact of the matter is that the perimeter defense he's anchoring of doing a very good job of doing that, and he's learning so much playing alongside Chris Paul. Mm-hmm. So I've enjoyed it, and you see this game, and you see what is possible with the Spurs. You see what the upside is with this team. And again, they're doing all of this, and I hate to bring it up because people know it. They're doing this with Jeremy Sohan not there. Spurs are 10-6 when Jeremy Sohan is on the bench with an injury this year.
Man, he had to go there, Jimenez. He really, really did. Will it be an episode with Jimenez if he doesn't bring up Sohan in a kind of negative light, I guess?
Well, it's not so much a negative light. The sample size is getting bigger. The sample size we have 20 game sample size of what it's like with Stephon Castle as a starter. They're 11-9.
Yeah.
We have a 16 game sample size of what it's like when Sohan is not playing. Spurs are 10-6. That's a 625 winning percentage. As the sample size grows, it becomes more and more clear. And the Spurs went away from it because Devin Vassell, that starting lineup that we were talking about there of, Barnes, Champagny, CP3, Castle, and Wemby, they went away from that because it's kind of stubborn to say, well, our highest paid player is Vassell. We need to play him.
Yeah.
He was a lottery pick 5 years ago. You have 2022 lottery pick in Jeremy Sohan. He was a former starter. You shouldn't lose your starting job because of injury. I get all of that. They tried to see if they could still grow off of them and build off of them. I'm not saying that Sohan's not a top 5 player on this team. He probably is. But the fact of the matter is that it's not your 5 best players. It's the 5 best players that play together. And sometimes you got to know your role. I would love to see Sohan come off the bench and play 24 to 28 minutes and electrify the second unit. I would love to see that. But we've seen that Stephon Castle is a better overall player. And because of that, he belongs in the starting lineup more than Sohan does. Because you're not going to take out Barnes. You're not going to take out CP3. You're not going to take out Wemby.
Yeah.
Really, the difference is you had to ask yourself a question as Spurs fans. Who do you think is the better starter for this team? Is it Castle or Sohan?
Yeah.
And the numbers are showing, not only the eye test, but the analytics are showing that Castle rounds out the team better. And what he does is that he creates his own shot, and you have to address him. You have to respect him and guard him offensively.
Yeah.
And
the Spurs,
yeah, go ahead.
well, they also do the Spurs, but they did right. They capitalized, and have not seen in a while, on the Los Angeles turnovers. 25 points off those turnovers by LA. So I like that as well. So they were capitalizing on those opportunities. But ultimately, yes, you got contributions from everybody.
Yeah.
For the most part. You got steals. You got the defensive stuff going on versus the Lakers. And that's great. I mean, look, they helped the Lakers. I got to hear to 13 points in the fourth period. 13 points. But we got to ask the question, was it just a one-off thing? It's just the Lakers just having a bad night? Oh, are we making too much of this win over the Los Angeles Lakers as the Spurs get ready to face the Memphis Grizzlies tonight? We're going to be talking about that with Mike Jimenez of the 210 podcast. Make sure to subscribe to that on YouTube. Follow Jimenez on X at MJ Acquire Taste. But before we continue, let's go ahead and talk about Hungry Root.
When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've had this ongoing problem. I just don't have time. Between work, life, and trying to eat healthier, I was constantly feeling stressed out. I go to the grocery store, buy things I didn't need, then end up with no time to actually cook. And sticking to my health goals, that was a struggle too. But everything has changed when I discovered Hungry Root. Honestly, it's been a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and nutritionist all in one. They take care of my grocery shopping, recommending meals, groceries based on my taste, health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high-protein, gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready within 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to my door. It's been a huge time saver and has made healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. Do not miss out.
As the new leader of the Decepticons, I command you to subscribe to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Mike Jimenez. He is back, everybody, after a couple of weeks of just giving me the shaft there and ignoring me, and I can't make it. Oh, I can't do it. He's finally here, everybody. Make sure to follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste. Make sure to do that right now. We're talking about the Spurs win over the Lakers. What can they do to sustain the 500 or better play as the season goes on? Now, look, everybody wants the Spurs to do more than 500. I get that. But so far, we're seeing the team, and we have more than enough games under the belt to say, yeah, this is probably going to be a team that's going to be about 500 when it's all said and done. So, Jimenez, I asked the question before the break, are we making the win over the Lakers too much of a big deal? Is maybe they were distracted by the wildfires, coming back. They're not as young as the Spurs team are. They got a couple old guys on that roster. Is this just one of those games where the Lakers lost or the Spurs really did win?
Well, both. I mean, it's the fact of the matter that the Spurs, got hyped up because they were playing in LA. They're playing against LeBron James. Is it a one-off? It's most definitely a one-off. Okay. It's positive in the sense that you could see the upside potential of this team. But in any given day, you catch fire, you catch fire. Devin Vassell knocking down 5 out of 9 threes.
Oh, yeah.
The Spurs shooting 17 out of 20 from the free throw line. The Spurs getting all those steals. Everything kind of went their way, and they were all feeling it. They were all vibing at the same time.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you see Wemby go off, but everyone else struggle. or you'll have two players go off and the other three just have mediocre games. This was a game in which every single starter contributed. Even Trey Jones off the bench had 2 steals. Charles Bassey had 9 rebounds in limited time. You saw every single player out there, except for maybe Champagne, who struggled. I think he was 1 for 6 or 1 for 7. Every single player on the Spurs team had a good game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very rare that happens. So it is a one-off. I mean, I firmly believe that if the Spurs play the Lakers 10 times, doesn't matter if it's in LA, San Antonio, or neutral court, Lakers are going to win 7 or 8 out of those 10 games. But this was a game in which the Spurs put all the things together and they were all working well with each other, playing within themselves. I like the fact that Mitch Johnson went back to Mitch Johnson type of coaching.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like Pop was back in the building last week and the week before that, with the lineup changes and the strategies and the lack of adjustments. Wemby called out the lack of adjustments after a game last week. So the Spurs responded in a good, positive way. It is a one-off, but the Spurs need to win these road games because, we got the rodeo road trip coming up, and the Spurs are a sub-500 team on the road. This is a positive step in the right direction. They at least know what they're capable of.
Yeah. Now there is some signs. There are some signs of the Spurs. They're coming off a 3-game losing skid, beating the Lakers. But there was already weren't going to bottom out quite yet. It was there. It was close, but they didn't. I was looking at some of the numbers here. Jimenez, in the last 5 games, including the Lakers, win. They were right on 14th in the NBA defensive rating at 112.9. So the defense was still holding steady, middle of the pack-ish, but it wasn't dropped out. But the problem was their offense. It bottomed out to the 22nd in the NBA at 112.1. That's the offensive rating. So their defense was kind of keeping them afloat a bit. It was just their offense was sputtering. You saw that. Even the scoring droughts against Milwaukee, getting couldn't find the bottom of the bucket when it comes to shooting in the 3-game losing skid. Was there something in that 3-game losing skid that you saw that really worries you, even though the Spurs got the W?
The 3-game losing skid, I'm not going to really care so much about Denver coming to San Antonio and beating us at the Frostbank Center because Denver's a good team and Jokic is an all-time great. What did concern me was 2 things. One was the, losing a 19-point lead to a Bulls team that was ripe for the taking.
Yeah.
The other was against the Bucks, no one showing up to play.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big old debate within Spurs Twitter and Spurs fans, which is whether or not the Spurs identity needs to be defense or needs to be offense. You look back in the days when the Spurs first started winning titles in 99, 03, it was a defensive oriented team. Then you go to 2014 and it was an offensive oriented team. But somehow you got to spin both plates. And I think that the Spurs offensively play a lot better when you have Stephon Castle out there in the offense along with CP3. It's a dynamic that is very, very special. And it's very reminiscent of when CP3 played with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at Oklahoma City that one year. SGA is as good as he is because he got mentored by CP3, and hopefully Castle benefits the same way. Wemby did not have to do everything. He did not have to be all world for the Spurs. He need to go 24 and 22 to make this happen or make 37, 50 points, whatever the case may be. And when you have other players doing well, it takes the pressure off of Wemby, and you need to have your shooters shoot. And we're looking at Devin Vassell, who shot 5 for 9. He struggled against Milwaukee, struggled against Chicago. But it's nice to see the stroke come back. He's a very good shooter. My problem with Devin Vassell, though, is the fact when he does get going, he starts feeling himself way too much. Yeah. And he tries to become alpha Devin, but we just need him to be role player Devin. We need 16 points from you, dude. We don't need 26.
Yeah. And look, if it's 20 something, we'll take it. But more than likely than not, they don't need that production from you.
Right.
What concerned me during the losing skid was the mentality side of things. You mentioned the Chicago game, just not having that, that killer instinct. You have a team on the ground, you could just snap their necks into, and you don't do it. Spurs, Milwaukee, just wilted. I guess the physicality of that. I was already saying the S word, soft. especially after that Milwaukee game. It's like, is this team soft? Do we have a soft team? When you look at it, you don't really have a soft team. I don't consider it soft. CP3 definitely not soft. Harrison Barnes, same. I don't think they have a soft team. I think it's just, and the CP3 mentioned it to himself. He said this team doesn't have, at least during the losing skid, doesn't have this grit to, sign, seal, deliver the W's. So I think that'll come. And saw that versus the Lakers, and especially the fourth quarter. They came alive and they really took it to Los Angeles. So that was really concerning to me. Now, will they sustain that? We'll see. They got a couple tough outs now. They got Memphis tonight. They got Memphis again the next game before they take off on the road in Paris. Maybe it's a home game for Wemby and Sissoko, but nevertheless, they're going to start being on the road a lot more often than not until the close of the season. That may make or break their season, but ultimately, if they can get contributions, and by the way, we need to talk about this, Jimenez, before we go to break. They didn't take that many threes versus the Lakers at all. They didn't chuck up 52 as they did against Milwaukee. They kept it kind of even, and I like that. Like they were just going to their bread and butter. Everybody was, contributing. Wemby was being Wemby. I like they kind of went away from the three shot and just really got cooking, either close range or, just let Wemby get the free throw line and whatnot. So, yeah, you got to make threes in the NBA nowadays, but the Spurs showed, at least for one game, that you don't really have to do that. We'll see if that'll continue. I beg to differ, though. I think that you got to have three shooters on the roster. Spurs don't have that. Jimenez, before we go to break, any final thoughts about what you think about the Spurs snapping that losing skid at 500 headed into tonight's game versus versus Memphis?
Yeah, you take a look at the fact that they lost that lead against Chicago because they couldn't step on their neck. They did that against the Lakers, so that's a positive thing. I like CP3 talking trash when the Spurs were down in the second quarter. He was jawing at people at the free throw line, and he had an intensity in him that was infectious, and it was nice seeing him out there leading this team. What a great leader that he's become, and the Spurs are going to get dividends by players being around him for one season. It's amazing. Spurs taking on Memphis. It's a very, very, very good team. Guess what the Spurs need when it comes to that? The Spurs need perimeter defense, which means we need Stephon Castle. I don't need 23 points from Castle tonight. I need 12 points. You can clamp down on some of those guards.
Well, let's talk about that. When we get back, we're going to discuss tonight's game. Spurs-Grizzlies out at the Frost. We'll look at what the Spurs got to do. They got themselves a tough one. We'll see if they can pull it out at the end of the night tonight against Memphis. Right? But first, let's talk about Wayfair.
After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. Whether you're tidying up, cleaning out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the new year, Wayfair has everything you need, all within your budget. Look, if you're looking for furniture, they got huge selections that make it easy to find pieces that fit your style and budget. Hassle-free delivery, free delivery, even for larger items. Wayfair site, so easy to navigate. You'll find everything you need in no time. There's something for everyone, for every style, at every home, no matter your space or budget. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space. And, for example, what is your decor style? Well, what items do you want to pick? You want to go to Wayfair right now. So again, delivery, free, fast, and hassle-free. Give your home the results it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
This is Emilio Rivera, El Padrino for the Mayans MC. You are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Mike Jimenez. Make sure to follow my next at MJ Acquired Taste. Do that right now. We're talking about your silver and black and looking at tonight's game, Spurs-Grizzlies. And we have up forward to Zach Edey versus Wemby. I've been looking forward to this matchup since Edey got into the league. I want to see how Wemby will go up against a big young boy like that in the paint. But it's beyond Wemby and Edey. You got John Morant. You got a Memphis team that's kind of finding itself right now, firing all cylinders here. Let's go ahead and look at the Memphis. They are third in the West right now, 25-15 record. And for the season, they ranked fifth in offensive rating at 118.1 and sixth in defensive rating at 110.7. Good for a net rating of 7.4, fourth in the NBA. This is going to be a tough team. We're really going to see the Spurs get their mettle tested, huh?
Well, it kind of reminds me of when the Spurs had the back-to-back games against the Denver Nuggets. Just get one. Just get one.
Yeah.
Don't try to win both. I mean, try to win both, but as a Spurs fan, you should be happy if the Spurs get one. Like you said, it's a double-edged sword. They're a good team offensively. They're a good team defensively, and the Spurs are going to have to deal with that a little bit. Spurs will have some home cooking, right? So hopefully the crowd can kind of inspire and carry the team through. But I think it all begins with the head of the snake, which is John Morant.
Yeah.
And you can't control him, but if you can just limit his production, that's a start. And that's not going to be CP3 chasing after him. And if Sohan comes back, it's not going to be him. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to send the rookie Stephon Castle out there to go track down John Morant. And I think he's up for the game. I think he's up for the challenge. I don't think he's afraid of it. Doesn't mean he's going to succeed, but I don't think he's afraid of it. So that's going to be a fun thing to watch as a Spurs fan is, can Castle slow down John Morant a little bit? I think he can slow him down a bit. Edie, interesting that you mentioned him because if you look at the two people who are in the top of the race for Rookie of the Year, you have Edie against Stephon Castle.
Yeah.
This reminds me of last January when you had Wemby going up against OKC Thunder and going against Chet Holmgren.
No,
and that was the game when they played each other, and you said, you know what? We see them play on the court at the same time. We now know which player is better than the other. We're going to have back-to-back games for Stephon Castle and Zach Edey, and those who are watching those Rookie of the Year votes and the voters who vote in that competition are going to be able to see back-to-back games of those two playing, and we're going to see which one they look at and go, oh my God, if I had a team, I'd rather have this player. So this might be the opportunity, like what Wemby did against Holmgren, to wrestle that first place vote away from Zach Edey. So that's what I'm looking forward to this week.
Yeah, it's not just Edey and Morant. You Spurs got to worry about Jaren Jackson Jr. and then defending that three line against a guy like Desmond Bane. So the Spurs got themselves a handful tonight versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, you mentioned earlier, they do have some creature comforts. They are at home, so that'll be good. The Spurs play well at home. But, man, I'm just looking at the Memphis Grizzlies and some of their numbers here. Jimenez, 9th in steal percentage in the NBA, 3rd in block percentage in the NBA. You need some more? Okay, let's go ahead and go with this. Let's see. What about just rebounding? 2nd in offensive rebounding at 29.1% offensive rebounding percentage. So they definitely get their second shots. Spurs got to be firing all cylinders. You say what you will about the individual matchups. For me, I do agree with you. It starts at the defensive end. Slow down as much as you can, Durant. Close out on Desmond Bane and the rest of the three shooters. Control the boards as best you can, Spurs. I think it'll be defense ultimately that'll win this game from either team. What do you think is going to come down to, Jimenez?
You mentioned that roster that Memphis has. They're not sexy names. JJJ, Desmond Bane. Yeah. They're not sexy. Zach Edey. They just get the job done. And what you see from these players like Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. is the fact that they're like Swiss Army knives. They are not just sitting at the 3-point line. They can create their shot. They can get rebounds. They can play defense. It's like playing. This team is like playing a stud point guard and 3 Derek Whites. Just 3 players that they can shoot lights out, they can play good defense, and are just very, very, very good role players. They know the alpha is Ja. They know that's their guy. But everyone else knows their role in this team. And they're a tough out, man. And when the playoffs come, they're going to be a tough out when that happens. Again, I just hope the Spurs win one. Just win one.
Yeah.
Just be 20 or 20.
Spurs. And
be 20 and 20.
take some of those lessons you learned against the Lakers. You know, I know it's apples and oranges here, Memphis and the Lakers, but if you can get contributions from everybody, play some decent defense, try to take some threes, but don't rely on threes. And of course, T-Fest Spurs should get the W, hopefully crossing fingers. He is Mike Jimenez. Be sure to follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste. Hey, what's going on the YouTube side of things?
Yeah, so we rebranded the podcast. It was called the Alamo City Sportscast for a year. We rebranded it to Area 210 Podcast so that we can talk about more than just sports. You know, we can talk more about pop culture, things going around town, you know, the rodeos coming up, Fiesta, and all that stuff. So we can have a more well-rounded show with a lot of different topics out there. But we do talk a lot of Spurs. We do talk a lot of NFL with the playoffs going on. We are going to celebrate not this Saturday, but next Saturday, the 25th, with a karaoke party for our subscribers because 2,000 subscribers. We're inching closer to 2,100. We're excited about it. Our show is Monday through Friday from 10 to about 11:30. Monday through Friday. That's when Ticket 760 and San Antonio Sports Star get away from local programming. If you want local sports talk, just go on to YouTube. You can look us up under Alamo City Sportscast or under Area 210 Podcast because that's just our new rebranded name. But we have our you are on our show on Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a fantastic job with us, and we have a lot of guests and things like that. It's a fun show, and we encourage people to be part of the show.
Yeah, it's very active during the live show. You see the comments just flowing in. So it's a good show. And again, if you want to go to that show, simply just go to Jimenez's Twitter, or X, I should say, at MJ Acquired Taste. There you'll find everything you need. Follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste. Do that right now. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk all things San Antonio Spurs. I believe we have on deck Vinny Bencetta from Ken's 5, my colleague. He is going to be coming back to talk silver and black. We'll see what he has to say tomorrow on Locked On Spurs. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcasts. iTunes, Spotify, the Plus app. You know where to go. Locked On Spurs newsletter. Free and available. It's in the YouTube description below. Click on that link. Subscribe. It's completely free. Do that right now. For Mike Jimenez, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.